Hi, and welcome to this quick tool review. This time around we'll be looking at the Vevor SBG 40. It is a similar bending tool to the one shown in the recent This Old Tony episode, Can You Weld Cast Iron? Definitely go check out his channel if you haven't before. You're in for a treat. The guy is not only informative but exceptionally creative. He is a YouTube gem. This bender was donated to my channel to evaluate it, and that's what I plan on doing. Based on previous Vevor items, they were packed very well, a whole sample of one, but we're going to check this guy out. It did take some UPS love here, but it looks like it survived okay, at least externally. And This Old Tony also reviewed, he replaced his SBG 40 that he repaired with another model, the UB100, except he didn't get the one that Vevor sells, which has pins for predefined angular rotations. His was analog only, meaning it is an infinitely variable adjustment. Didn't have the preset pins, which is unfortunate. All right, let's just open this guy up and take a look. Those of you that have been watching my channel for a while might have seen my build series on the Tom Lipton bender, and boy, I'm dropping YouTube royalty names like rain this time around. Anyways, that Tom Lipton bender worked pretty well, but there were some things about it that I thought could have been improved on. For one thing, the pipe tends to slip when you're bending it around the mandrel, and there's nothing to clamp it in place. I believe this guy solves that problem. They wrap tape in multiple directions, which is wise for heavy things. This is surprisingly heavy for what I thought was supposed to be a fairly small bender. I'm kind of surprised at the weight. I'm a little concerned actually that I might have got myself into a very large bender. So here's a couple parts. Can't tell whether this is hot rolled, which I think it is, but maybe it's painted as well. Interesting. Well, we get to the next level, and some things did move around here. Got a couple Allen keys, which is nice. They provide the tools to put it together with, and some other free parts here. Looks like the bender body. I think the section over here is the part that This Old Tony fixed on his. And there's a bunch of free parts floating around in here. Oh, that's a heavy bit. This guy's seriously heavy. I did not expect something this big. I thought this thing was going to be like maybe half this size to a third. This is much, much bigger than I thought it was going to be. When This Old Tony was welding this part back, which he said was cast iron, it didn't look that big at all, but maybe it's just the camera angle or wide angle. There wasn't a manual to download, but there were some really helpful pictures on Vevor's site, so I'll include them here. Before we start the bending, here's my fingers. This is a pretty beefy machine, and it's capable of doing 1 3/16 high by 5/16 thick steel. It can do round stock up to 5/8 of an inch, which is really impressive, and can do square stock 19/32, which is also 15 millimeters. So it's a pretty beefy device. We'll have to put it to the test and find out. Before we head over to test this bending capabilities, I noticed that the work stop bar is missing the stop for it, first of all. Second of all, notice the weird tapered threads. It's almost like it was roll threaded at an angle, and the part of it went in and got fully threaded, but then for the last inch or so, the threads taper off to nothing. It's a very odd thing. I've never seen anything like it. Either that or have to be one very big die with really long starts. And you can see over there that it screws into the end of that block there, and then there's a stop that slides on it with a thumb screw, which I accidentally threw out, and that lets you set part depth. I'll never use this stop. It's not particularly useful in its current form. So I've bolted the bender to my welding table, which is just an inch thick piece of plate steel sitting on top of my table saw, and I made a T-slot piece that fit right in the T-slot for the full length, and it just screws in 2 spots. Works out really well. In order to get the holes drilled and tapped in the 1 inch thick, I used this really cool tool from Gator Tools here that lets you line your drill bits up vertically. It also has an angle slot in the bottom that lets you work on round stock. To locate the holes initially, I used a center finding punch set and ran it through the part closest to the metric size and got the holes centered very nicely before I drilled. Well, we finally got some audio back here. So if I adjust this guy so that it's pretty close here, let's see, let's have it make contact somewhere around here. I noticed that this is right on the center line. This extends a little bit past the center line. Let's tighten this guy down right here. So we're going to start with the easiest and work to somewhat harder and see if it performs well. So here is no problem at all. That is trivial. It actually was hitting something on the other side, so that was preventing it from bending. My garage is a very tight spot. This needed to be shorter, but no problem. This is 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch flat bar. I cut this off so that I could bend it more, so we can go past 90 by a little bit there, and that looks like it's pretty good. So that was trivial. That was effortless. This is that bar I was telling you about that I'll probably never use the work stop. You put a piece out here with a thumb screw to tighten on it. I don't think I'll be using it. Don't really like it. Although, hey, this is probably worth testing to see if it'll bend, right? So we need to readjust this guy. It looks like, well, it's not 3/8, it's probably the metric equivalent of 3/8 or something close thereabouts. And so we're going to tighten this guy in place. So these balls are kind of annoying. I'm just going to point that out because they rub constantly. So that's holding tightly now. Let's get this guy in there square. See how much effort it takes to bend what is about 3/8 inch bar, and the answer is almost zero effort. I leaned into it a little bit, but it was really easy. So that bend was trivial. Guess you can see that right there. Next up, we have some 1/4 inch square stock. I think this is going to be laughably easy because this is smaller than that almost 3/8 inch diameter rod was. And yeah, could have done that with 2 fingers, no problem. Very nice bend. That was over 90. All right, next up we have a more challenging piece here, which is the 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square steel stock. And this is where the Lipton bender might struggle a bit because there's nothing to clamp the piece. So as you pull this piece around, it drags that piece forward. And I found that to be difficult. Now, someone who's like Tom, who's an expert and probably has lots of experience, probably can deal with that. But it's hard to compensate for when you're a novice. So let's just give this a shot, see what it takes. Okay, that is requiring some effort. It's moving my whole table saw. That's impressive. My table saw is on wheels though. So hopefully that didn't go out of frame, but it bent it. So we're going to try some radius work here, and I've moved this to the back position, And I've removed this block. It came off really easily the second time. The roll pin's much looser. Put the stud in the center here so you can see this. That just screws into the middle. This slides down. You could make other mandrels if you'd like. You grab your work. You remove this piece off of in front of the roller. I've got the roller adjusted, and then you just run this guy around like so, and you get a really nice radius out of it. And again, this is too long, so it really wasn't fitting over here in this tiny little workspace I've got. But if I'd cut this off, which I'll go do now, we can run it all the way around. So next step, we just run this guy around, and it's really smooth like butter. And again, I've got things in the way. That's the only reason I can't make it. Let's see, maybe I can just do it manually here. There we go. It's that easy. Didn't even need the extension arm at all. This is the 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch hot rolled steel. So that was trivial. And I don't think this thing has ever quite recovered. Let's see, if I hold this straight, does it go? Yeah. I think maxing it out, these might have been a little bit soft threads. So now they're kind of struggling a bit. So that's a beautiful radius turn, and you could easily make another mandrel for smaller diameters. All right, so let me normal this up, and we'll do a scroll bend last. Well, I'm not quite sure what happened, but it's not the threads damaged because they're very smooth still. See, that whole thing is really smooth. So I'm not quite sure what it is. It feels like it's something with this block that's not rotating nicely anymore. I'll take that off in a second. But I'm going to convert it over to the scroll so we can see what that looks like. And all that is just these two screws. Oh, and this thing will have to be retracted. Okay, the scroll bit comes in two parts so that you can actually do a longer rotation with it. So this was flame cut, and it comes up sort of flat there. But anyways, you start with this guy off, and we'll grab our flat bar, which again, I may not be able to have fit in here properly because I don't have room. I'm gonna have to clear some stuff out of the way. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to load some stock in here. Everything is in the way here because this is a very tight spot. Fortunately, I will never be using this feature of it because I don't like this sort of decorative iron, but I'm sure there's plenty of people this may interest. I am inexperienced with this sort of bending. So then you just wrap this guy around like so. Now I think I'm too tight. That's hilarious. So I keep having to loosen this because this, or maybe you do run it loose. I don't really know, to be honest with you. Maybe you leave this loose so that it goes like this. Then once you get to this side, you put this piece back and you keep going. And I really did not lay out this area very well for this kind of operation because everything is in the way. Oh, you can have a way out here, okay. Well, it ends up being pretty trivial. If you like this sort of decorative ironwork. I'm not particularly a fan. Like I said, I think I will never use this part, but it's nice to know it's got it if you need it. And for those that want it, make sure you've got plenty of room because I did not plan enough space here for this to work at all. Didn't even think about that. So I was wondering what was wrong with this guy. This part is perfectly fine, not damaged at all inside. This part where they turned the edge here, it pressed the edge out a little bit. It's hollow. They hollow cut it, which is really weird. So I've got to take this over to lathe, and I got to remove, well, I can take it over the grinder and remove the burr off of here, and that would probably be enough. And then they were nice enough to have it set screw removable, so that'll make it pretty easy to fix. So if I just take that burr off here, I think we'll be all good to go on this. So I removed some material here, and we're back to very smooth again. So let's see how we're doing here. So we're all fixed, we're back to normal. It just raised a little bit of burr on the inside. So you should just be aware that if you go for maximum force, that this may end up getting a burr inside, but the thread survived just fine. I would really like this to be like a 1/2 inch longer, and then I wouldn't have to deal with this right here. I suppose if I replace the balls, which do unscrew here, with something smaller, that'll also help alleviate that. So that might be a good in the short term. They were nice enough to make these removable, so I can put anything I want on there. And then this thing spins just fine all the way up till tight. So that might be enough. I might just take a couple lock nuts on here. That's all I'll need. These balls are a little overkill. So I grabbed a couple of M10 nylon lock nuts, which I haven't tightened all the way yet, but they're going to work great. They work perfect as stops, and I can go all the way in without a problem for the very thin stock. You know, since this thing only has a capacity of 5/8, I'm not quite sure why they didn't plan on a longer shaft, because most of the time this is going to be in farther, right? So that's something they should have thought about. But I got a lot of good bends here. They were all pretty much easy, except for this one. This one was pretty darn hard to do, but very doable even without an extension shaft. This one was 12L14, very easy. This was hot rolled, and all of these other materials also bent very easily. Like I said, this was the only challenging one. So overall, I think I give this thing a thumbs up. There's some definite caveats. So if you're looking for a super nice, everything finished perfectly kind of tool, this isn't it. You might want to spend more and get one that's they spent more time on the machining and the finishing process. But if you want one that's perfectly functional, this is a great tool. For me, this does absolutely everything I'm ever going to want it to do. 99.9% of the time I'm going to be using it in this configuration. Very little, pretty much never do anything else, at least no plans. Certainly not the scroll. But this guy, maybe at some point, and I might end up making some other mandrels if I have to do some radius work and I want some round parts, that might end up being useful. Other than that, I think we're good. For the price, I think this is well worth it. But again, with the caveats, so keep in your mind what you're interested in and what you're looking for. And if you're using this every day, maybe you want to go for a more polished version and pay more than double. That's my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Hope you find it useful. Hope to see you next time.